He walked into the forest with a smile on his face. But the strange thing is, no one ever saw him walk back out. October 2022. Chattahoochee National Forest, Georgia. Jamal Carter. 28 left his small apartment in Atlanta early that morning, carrying a light backpack. On the phone with his mother, he promised, "I'll be home before dark." But darkness came and went. Dawn broke again, and Jamal never returned. His car sat silently at the trailhead, enduring 3 storms under the old, windswept trees. No one knows what happened after he ventured deep into the woods' only scattered clues, conflicting accounts, and a chilling silence that lingers to this day. Jamal Carter was born in 1994 in Macon, a small city in southern Georgia known for its dusty red brick streets, rows of low-slung houses, and family diners that kept their lights on late into the night. He was the only child of Valerie Carter, an elementary school teacher known for being strict yet deeply loving. Jamal's father died in a car accident when Jamal was just 7, leaving mother and son to rely solely on each other as they navigated the challenges of being a single black family in the South. Even as a little boy, Jamal showed a gentle spirit and a warm smile, always ready to share his lunch with classmates who couldn't afford their own around the neighborhood. He was the kid who said thank you to the garbage collectors, sorry when he accidentally cut across an adult's path, and never missed wishing his mother good night. In high school, Jamal stood out for his passion for art. Teachers still remembered the skinny black teenager with an old camera slung around his neck, wandering the streets to capture everything he saw: sprawling oak branches, cracked painted walls, the weary eyes of workers coming off their shifts. At 17, his photo, Eyes in the Rain, won first prize in a statewide photography contest, making the halls of Macon High School buzz with pride and sparking hopes that he'd have a bright future. But when Jamal shared his dream of becoming a documentary photographer, many voiced doubts. A young black man in Georgia traveling America with a camera, is that really possible? That question planted a quiet unease in Jamal's heart, but it also fueled his determination to move to Atlanta after graduation, in the big city. Jamal took on any work he could find to support his dream night shifts at a coffee shop, photo editing for a small print store, filming weekend weddings. He rented a tiny room in a gray-painted apartment on the outskirts, decorating the walls with his own black and white photos. Some captured the faces of homeless people at the subway station, others an elderly couple holding hands in the rain, and many were shots of Chattahoochee National Forest, the place Jamal told his mother he felt closest to himself whenever he stepped into it. Amid Atlanta's chaotic pace, Chattahoochee's woods became his sanctuary, a place he believed nature would never judge him, never discriminate, just embrace him with cool breezes and the scent of damp leaves. Though his jobs were unstable, Jamal never stopped giving back. On weekends, he volunteered to take free family portraits for low-income households, believing everyone deserved a beautiful photo to remember their loved ones. He once told friends, everyone should have a picture that reminds them of who they love. Many families in South Atlanta still have Jamal's photos on their walls, grateful not just for the images, but for how he made them laugh and feel seen during the shoot. Among his friends, Jamal's smile was often compared to sunshine, though private about his own struggles. He was always there when others needed him, sitting overnight with a friend in the hospital, dropping off meals for coworkers who'd lost their jobs. His community was limited to his neighborhood through his community photography projects. He connected with people all over Atlanta, old booksellers at flea markets, nurses, college students far from home. Everyone remembered Jamal as someone who never bragged, just quietly captured people's stories through the old camera his father left him. the only thing his dad had to give before he passed, despite being beloved. Jamal kept a certain distance from crowds. He often disappeared for days at a time, camping alone in the forest to listen to himself. As he'd say, his mother understood it had always been his way to seek solace in nature when he was upset. Friends were used to this routine, but this time felt different right before vanishing. Jamal canceled a wedding photo shoot, something unheard of for him, known for his punctuality and professionalism. Mini Hook Minute 5. The one thing he'd carried for years, a wooden keychain engraved with "Stay Strong." A gift from his mother after he was bullied at school, was found later in the forest. An unsettling sign that he'd been there. But leaving behind his most precious possession made no sense. Those closest to Jamal recalled he had grown quieter in recent weeks after being turned down by a local newspaper. He had pitched a photo project highlighting the lives of black workers in Atlanta, hoping to show their resilience and beauty through unvarnished portraits. But the response was curt. "This subject won't sell." That rejection, combined with mounting financial pressures from dwindling gigs, sometimes sent Jamal off the grid for a few days. Yet friends believed he was strong enough to bounce back. He often said, "I'm not afraid of hardship, only of a life without meaning." In the last days before his disappearance, Jamal texted his mother to say he planned to spend Sunday in the forest, watching the autumn leaves change. It was his favorite season, when the trees blazed red, gold, and orange, their reflections shimmering in the winding streams of Chattahoochee. His mother warned him, "Be careful, it's getting cold." He laughed over the phone and reassured her, "I know, Mom, you'll be home before dark." That morning, Jamal stopped at a gas station a few miles from the trailhead to buy a sandwich, water, and camera batteries. He sent a final text to his ex-girlfriend, "Take care of yourself." The message alarmed her. It didn't sound like him. When she called back, he didn't pick up. That was the last time anyone heard from Jamal. That evening, his mother texted again, "Still waiting for you." The message showed as delivered, but was never read. That night, heavy rain pounded the forest, temperatures dropped sharply, and fierce winds swept through Chattahoochee's canopy. Jamal's apartment neighbors noticed his lights stayed off for 3 straight nights, but assumed he was simply out camping as usual. No one realized this trip would turn into a lasting mystery, leaving those who loved Jamal still searching for answers to the question, what really happened in those dark, stormy woods that night. On the chilly morning of October 9th, 2022, a light mist blanketed the road leading into Chattahoochee National Forest. The only gas station along the route recorded Jamal on its security camera at 7:12 a.m. He wore a black windbreaker, a gray knit cap, and carried a small backpack along with his worn hiking boots. In the video, Jamal smiled warmly at the station clerk as he bought a bottle of water and a few granola bars. His demeanor seemed so perfectly normal that no one could have imagined all traces of him would vanish just hours later. Investigators determined Jamal's last phone activity occurred at 9:02 a.m. that same morning, when he sent a brief text to his best friend back in Atlanta. "The weather's beautiful today." After that, his phone never connected to any network again. According to the cell provider's records, the device stayed powered on until midday, but never moved out of the dense forest area until the battery finally died. Jamal's car, a silver Toyota sedan, was discovered until October 12th when a couple hiking the main trail stumbled upon it. The car sat at the trailhead, covered in dry autumn leaves, its doors locked and windows intact, no signs of forced entry or vandalism. Inside, his wallet, ID camera, and a neatly folded blue bandana lay on the front passenger seat. What puzzled investigators even more was the trunk inside was a paper bag containing 2 brand-new books, one on portrait photography, the other on wilderness survival, both appearing untouched, as if he had bought them but never had a chance to read. When police brought his mother, Valerie, to the scene, she stood silently for a long time, resting her hand on the rain-damp car hood, and whispered, "You were here, weren't you?" That image of a grieving mother alone in an empty forest parking lot, surrounded only by the whistling wind and the damp scent of earth, haunted every search and rescue worker who witnessed it. They all knew too much time had already passed since Jamal's disappearance, and each hour that slipped by made the hope of finding him alive grow fainter. On October 13th, an official search was launched. Over 30 people, including police officers, park rangers, volunteers, and 2 teams of search dogs fanned out across trails and surrounding areas. They split into groups, combing every path and thicket, examining any hint of a clue. The static of walkie-talkies crackled through the trees as they coordinated their efforts, infusing the misty forest with an urgent but determined energy. In the first 2 days, the teams discovered multiple footprints, but none could be conclusively tied to Jamal because the trails were busy with weekend hikers. On the 3rd day, searchers found Jamal's wooden keychain, engraved with the words "Stay Strong," lying on a large rock near a fork leading to a small stream. This keepsake was the first definitive sign confirming Jamal had ventured deeper into the forest. When his mother held the keychain in her hands, she broke down in tears, and everyone around her wept as well. It wasn't just a clue, it was proof that her son had truly been there. Unfortunately, the weather turned against them. Persistent drizzle and cold winds reduced visibility and slowed the search. Rescue workers had to use ropes to access steep, slippery slopes near cliffs. They scoured every hollow tree and crevice between rocks. But aside from the keychain, they found nothing, no jacket, no backpack, not even a scrap of torn fabric. The complete absence of signs puzzled everyone if Jamal had suffered an accident. There should have been evidence: a piece of clothing, scratches on nearby branches, or clear shoe prints. As searchers began to tire, each passing day weighed more heavily on Jamal's mother's heart. She started posting flyers along the forest's edge, each one pleading, "Jamal Carter, if you see him, please call." Exhausted, she still refused to sleep through a single night. Her rescuer snapped a photo of her standing amid the white morning mist, hands trembling as she taped a flyer to a forest sign and image that later became a symbol of her unwavering determination to keep hope alive. On October 15th, one search team found Jamal's blue bandana caught in a bush nearly 4 miles downstream from where the keychain had been discovered. The bandana was still damp and streaked with fresh mud, suggesting it hadn't been there long. But the area around it revealed nothing else: no new footprints, no broken branches, no dropped items. The bandana became the last clue ever found, and the biggest mystery if Jamal kept moving deeper into the forest. Why was there no trace of his continued path? One baffling incident deepened the mystery on the night of October 11th. A couple camping near the stream reported hearing faint singing drifting out of the dark forest. They described it as a man's voice, slow and mournful, repeating the same few lines for about 15 minutes before abruptly stopping. When police arrived to investigate, they found no sign of anyone, only the unsettling chorus of night sounds in the woods. Rescue teams later debated whether it could have been Jamal trying to signal for help, or merely the eerie echo of wind whistling through rocky hollows. Meanwhile, news of Jamal's disappearance began to spread on social media. Hundreds shared his photos and stories about his kindness, generosity, and the good he'd done for his community, calling for help in the search. A small crowdfunding campaign raised enough to allow Valerie to stay at a motel near the forest, giving her a place to wait for news. Strangers drove hundreds of miles to join the search, moved by Jamal's story. But despite all these efforts, the harsh truth remained the longer the search dragged on, the slimmer the chances of finding Jamal alive. By October 18th, search operations were scaled back due to the lack of new leads. But Valerie refused to leave, venturing into the forest herself each day, scanning the endless rows of towering trees. She didn't cry in front of the rescue teams, but at night she sat quietly beside her tent, staring into the black depths of the woods, whispering, "Jamal, where are you?" The forest winds carried her words away, but they never carried Jamal back. On the morning of October 19th, police received a call from a man who claimed to be an experienced hiker trekking overnight through Chattahoochee Forest. On the night of October 9, the same night Jamal is believed to have vanished. He reported seeing a black man in a black jacket sitting motionless on a large rock near the Southern Trail Junction around 10 p.m. The moonlight, he said, lit up the man's tired face. When he called out, "Are you okay?" the man only gave a faint shake of his head, staring down in silence. The hiker, worried about getting lost himself in the growing darkness, continued on his way. This account prompted rescue teams to return to the area, combing it for 2 days. They found faint footprints matching the type of shoes Jamal wore. But heavy rains had left the ground muddy and the prints too degraded to track reliably. Meanwhile, another witness, forest ranger, reported seeing someone matching Jamal's description at 5 p.m. that same day, nearly 6 miles from where the hiker claimed his sighting. According to the ranger, the man appeared to be rushing, frequently glancing over his shoulder, as if terrified. These two statements created a troubling contradiction if both were accurate. Jamal would have needed to cover nearly 6 rugged, mountainous miles in just a few hours, an extremely difficult feat, especially with darkness falling and the cold rain setting in that evening. So, who was mistaken, or had one of them perhaps seen a different person altogether, inadvertently pulling the search effort in the wrong direction and wasting precious time? The conflicting accounts deepened the confusion and cast a heavy shadow of doubt over the entire operation. Valerie, Jamal's mother, was torn when police explained the conflicting witness reports. Part of her longed to believe Jamal was still alive, wandering somewhere in the forest. Another part feared he had come to harm. The flickering hope and encroaching despair played out in her eyes, mirroring the tangled web of stories investigators struggled to unravel. Every clue offered the possibility of saving her honor, crushing the last fragile shred of hope. On October 21st, yet another call shifted the search in a new and unsettling direction. A woman named Alana, living in a small town about 15 miles from the forest, told police she believed she'd seen someone who looked like Jamal on the night of October 10th, a day after he disappeared, driving along a narrow road skirting the forest at around 8 p.m. She said she noticed a black man with short hair standing by the roadside, waving as if trying to hitch a ride. But with rain falling hard and alone in her car, she was too afraid to stop and drove on. This information electrified the search effort. If Jamal had made it out of the forest on October 10th, he might still be alive. But why hadn't he contacted his family or friends? Or was the person Alana saw simply someone else who happened to resemble him? Search teams quickly expanded their efforts along the road Alana described, but found no trace, no fresh footprints, no personal items, nothing. Nearby traffic cameras, which could have corroborated her account, were unfortunately down that night due to technical issues caused by the storm on October 9th, extinguishing the chance to verify her sighting. Meanwhile, a chilling anonymous message arrived on the police hotline, claiming to have heard a scream echoing from deep in the woods on the night of October 9th near the area where Jamal's bandana had been found. The report sent shivers through everyone involved if the scream had been Jamal's. It suggested he might have been in distress at precisely the place they suspected, yet with no other evidence, it remained a haunting, inconclusive puzzle piece in an already murky mystery. The scattered, contradictory, and unverified information began to fracture the search effort, pulling resources in multiple directions. Each call or tip lifted the families hopelessly to drop them back into despair when another exhaustive search yielded nothing. Night after night, radio messages crackled through the forest with the same hollow words, "No signs found." Every cold report felt like another blade twisting in Valerie's heart. Yet she continued to stand vigil at the trailhead day after day. On October 23rd, with hope growing dim, search leaders tried a new approach. They enlisted local survival experts who knew every ridge and crevice of Chattahoochee, hoping their knowledge could reveal clues missed earlier. These experts scoured narrow ravines, hollowed-out trees, and treacherous cliff edges. For 3 days, they meticulously searched the creek area where the bandana was discovered. But once again, they were met with the forest's cold, unyielding silence. No new signs of Jamal, no fresh tracks, not even a broken twig to suggest a recent passage. During these exhaustive searches, one rescue worker confided to a colleague that he felt haunted by stories of singing voices drifting through the night and glimpses of a lone figure moving among the trees. Just knowing there might still be someone out there, freezing and alone in the dark. "I can't sleep at night," he said. That story spread among volunteers, gnawing at them with the fear that Jamal might still be alive somewhere, too weak to reach help. The growing sense of dread soon morphed into mental exhaustion, sapping the morale of many involved. At the same time, police began considering a grim possibility. Could some of the conflicting reports have been deliberate hoaxes meant to mislead the search? But they found no evidence supporting this theory, and the uncertainty only thickened the fog of fear and confusion. Every new tip was scrutinized intensely, yet every lead eventually collapsed, adding to the maze of doubt. Meanwhile, Jamal's closest friends organized community prayer gatherings in a small square in downtown Atlanta, not to plead with heaven, but to share stories of Jamal so he would not be forgotten. They spoke of his kindness to strangers, the family portraits he gave to those who couldn't afford them, the bright, infectious smile he carried wherever he went. Each memory offered a way to keep Jamal's spirit alive, even as the final truth about his disappearance remained hidden in the deep, dark woods of Georgia. On October 25th, just as rescue teams were preparing to scale back the search, an anonymous call to the hotline reignited a flicker of hope. The caller was a man with a hoarse voice, sounding as if he hadn't slept in days. Speaking slowly, he said, "I don't know if I should say this, but I think I saw the person you're looking for a few days ago." He described seeing a black man wearing a knit hat, limping near the eastern trail of Chattahoochee Forest on the night of October 11th. The man appeared terrified, constantly glancing over his shoulder as if someone were following him. When pressed for more details, the caller fell silent for several seconds, then abruptly hung up. This account sent shockwaves through the search effort, if true. It suggested Jamal not only survived past the night he went missing, but may have encountered someone or something that frightened him deeply. But without a way to identify or question the caller further, there was no way to confirm the report. Rescue teams split into groups and rushed back to the eastern trail. scouring every fork, thicket, and tree trunk. Searching for signs Jamal might have been wandering in the woods for days. But heavy rain swept in again, washing away any footprints and erasing what little hope remained of finding clear evidence. That night, Valerie sat beside the temporary rescue campfire, her face drawn and hair streaked with rain, illuminated by the flickering flames. She shared stories of Jamal's childhood, how he was a shy boy who stood up for weaker classmates, the child who never forgot his mother's birthdays. Her quiet tales warmed the hearts of everyone listening, reminding them they weren't just searching for a missing name on a report, but for a son, a friend, a young man with dreams still unfulfilled. Her words renewed the rescuers' resolve, if only for a moment. On the morning of October 26th, police received yet another report, this time from a supply worker servicing a campsite near the western forest edge. The worker claimed he had seen a dark figure wearing a black raincoat standing motionless by his parked truck around 4 a.m. on October 12th, just hours after Jamal was believed to have disappeared. When he shone his flashlight, the figure bolted into the forest, the sound of crunching leaves echoing briefly before silence swallowed everything. What made this sighting especially troubling was that the truck was parked nearly 7 miles from where Jamal's bandana had been found. With no direct trails connecting the two areas, news of the latest sighting spread quickly through the community, fueling new theories. Some believed Jamal had been disoriented, wandering aimlessly through the forest for days, possibly injured or suffering from exposure. Others whispered darker suspicions that someone else had been in the forest, perhaps threatening Jamal or involved in his disappearance. Anxiety grew as people began to ask whether someone had used the darkness, bad weather, and treacherous terrain to hide a crime, even without proof. That question cast a heavy, unsettling pall over Jamal's family and the entire community. Facing rising public pressure, police shifted their approach, expanding the investigation beyond a missing persons case to consider potential foul play. They began combing criminal records for anyone with a history of violence in the area and interviewed locals about unfamiliar faces seen around the time Jamal vanished. But after countless interviews, they found no suspicious persons, no new clue, only more dead ends. The mounting uncertainty turned the case into a labyrinth of disconnected details, like shards of a shattered mirror that refused to form a clear reflection. As suspicion and fear thickened, the atmosphere among search teams shifted from cautious optimism to tense, weary frustration. After nearly 3 weeks scouring the dense forest, rescuers were exhausted in body and spirit. Debates broke out over whether to continue large-scale searches or pivot fully to a criminal investigation. Meanwhile, Valerie remained steadfast at the base camp, unmoved by calls to return home. "I will stay here until we find him or until no one else believes he's still alive," she vowed around this time. A veteran survival expert joined the team to provide his professional assessment. He grimly concluded that, given the length of Jamal's disappearance and the worsening weather, his chances of surviving without specialized camping gear were almost non-existent. Yet when asked about the conflicting reports, he admitted, in a forest spanning hundreds of square miles, light, sound, and fear can all play tricks on the mind. We can't treat these sightings as hard evidence. The unease deepened when some rescuers began suffering from nightmares. They dreamed of Jamal stumbling through the forest, reaching out for help, his voice swallowed by the whistling wind. One searcher had to withdraw entirely after an emotional breakdown. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Jamal's friends organized community gatherings not to pray for a miracle, but to share stories about the man he was, the countless acts of kindness, the portraits he gave to families in need, the warmth he spread wherever he went. They hoped these stories would keep his memory alive, no matter how the search ended. Just then, police announced a new potential clue, a small lighter engraved with the initials JC, matching Jamal Carter's name. Found 5 miles beyond the bandana site near a deep stream, but without fingerprints or DNA. They couldn't confirm it belonged to Jamal. The lighter offered a tantalizing possibility that Jamal had ventured deeper into the forest than anyone had thought, or it was simply a cruel coincidence. Another false lid, pulling everyone further from the truth. With each passing day, the search transformed into a haunting odyssey, as every clue both rekindled hope and deepened the mystery, leaving Jamal's family and community suspended in a painful limbo. On the morning of October 30th, as rangers began removing missing person posters in the deeper parts of Chattahoochee Forest, one ranger discovered something chilling carved into the trunk of a massive pine tree. Over 6 miles from the parking area were the words, crudely etched with something sharp, "I'm sorry, Mom." The cuts were fresh, the pale wood still raw, suggesting they'd been made just weeks earlier, lining up eerily with the time frame of Jamal's disappearance. When rescuers delivered the news, Jamal's mother collapsed to her knees, whispering, he was there. He tried to say something. The discovery left investigators baffled. If Jamal had truly made the carving, why were there no other signs of him nearby? They searched the area meticulously, but found no footprints, no scraps of clothing, nothing at all. Adding to the mystery, the tree stood far from all previous clue locations, with no clear trails connecting them, just a faint, leaf-strewn path barely touched by hikers. This fueled theories that Jamal had been wandering in panic or deliberately avoiding main trails. Yet there was still no definitive evidence. As photos of the haunting inscription spread across social media, hundreds expressed heartbreak and sorrow for the young man full of dreams. But just as many began to wonder if it was a cruel hoax or an unsettling coincidence. The community splintered. Jamal's family found themselves at the center of a storm of speculation. Yet his mother held firm in her belief as the only one who called me Mom that way. For the search teams, the inscription deepened the sense of helplessness. They felt certain Jamal had been nearby, yet had no way to determine where he went afterward. The search became a maddening loop of leads that only raised more questions without ever bringing answers. On October 30th, police announced the case would shift into passive investigation, meaning search operations would cease regular patrols and only respond if new evidence emerged. The news was delivered during a short press conference, where Jamal's mother nearly collapsed, needing friends to keep her on her feet, her face blank with shock as her last fragile hope was officially suspended. When a reporter asked, "Do you believe your son is still alive?" she shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't know, I just know he needs me here." Those who had searched, the volunteers, Jamal's friends, everyone felt a hollow emptiness. After nearly a month, hundreds of hours combing the forest, and countless dead-end leads, they were forced to confront the harsh truth. Chattahoochee's deep woods had swallowed Jamal whole, and the silence of the forest had become an impenetrable wall. Friends in Atlanta created an online memorial page, filling it with hundreds of Jamal's photograph shopping to keep his passion for photography alive and to ensure people remembered him not just as another missing person, but as an artist, a loving son, and a loyal friend. A veteran ranger with over 30 years in Chattahoochee summed up what many felt: "I've seen a lot of disappearances, but never one with clues so clear yet so meaningless. The keychain, the bandana, the apology carved into that tree, it's like a trail of breadcrumbs leading nowhere." Faith drained from the community entirely on November 1st when a fierce autumn storm swept through the forest. Howling winds and heavy rain erased the last fragile traces that might have pointed to where Jamal had gone. His mother remained by the entrance of her makeshift tent, staring into the storm as if hoping to catch a glimpse of her son through the sheets of rain in the cold, endless night. Only the sounds of the storm remained, along with one quiet, unanswerable question. Where did Jamal go, and why didn't he come home? On November 2nd, the autumn storm swept through Chattahoochee Forest, leaving a dark, heavy sky in its wake. Fallen trees blocked several trails, and a somber stillness hung over the search area like a funeral shroud. The last rescue teams packed up and left, their old missing person signs left behind, creaking in the gusting wind. Jamal's mother, however, stayed behind, seated on a folding chair beside his car, now blanketed with rotting leaves. Her gaze fixed on the forest with the empty eyes of someone who had waited far too long. She no longer cried. Her grief had settled into a hollow, unshakable silence. A passing hiker snapped a photo of her sitting alone at the forest's edge. That image spread quickly across social media, resonating with thousands. Many wrote that it reminded them of mothers everywhere who had waited endlessly for missing sons. An agony that knows no language, color, or nationality, bound only by the cruel helplessness of being left to nature's indifference. Organizations supporting families of missing persons reached out to offer counseling and urged her to return home. But she shook her head softly. My home is here now. As days passed, Jamal's stories began to ripple through the community. People recalled the portraits he'd taken for struggling families, the way he encouraged children who felt ashamed of their skin color, how he would sit patiently for hours to capture a single, honest smile from a tired mother. His quiet kindness moved even strangers to tears. More and more people started calling him Jamal the Kin Jamal, who, though vanished into the forest, left a legacy of compassion woven into countless lives. In the days following the official suspension of the search, Chattahoochee Forest settled back into its deceptive serenity. Morning birdsong, slanting sunlight piercing the mist, streams murmuring over mossy stone. It was heartbreakingly beautiful, but carried an icy cruelty. Police kept Jamal's case open, promising to investigate any new leads. But everyone knew the chance of finding him alive had all but slipped away. Family and friends began gathering Jamal's belongings, his battered camera, a photo of him grinning proudly at graduation, the bandana recovered in the forest, the sticky notes he'd leave each morning to cheer up his mother. Each item cut like a knife, yet felt essential to preserve his memory. In his small Atlanta apartment, Jamal's workspace remained untouched, his laptop still open to a half-edited photo, prints strewn about waiting for his final touch, and his favorite ceramic mug with a thin crack along the rim sitting by his side. Theories swirled among friends and online communities, but none brought answers, only more questions. Some believed Jamal was injured and lost his way. Others feared he'd fled in panic from something he saw or heard. Still others thought he may have sought solitude without realizing how unforgiving the deep woods could be. But no matter the theory, all shared one unifying truth, that the pain left behind for those who loved Jamal was deeper and more enduring than any explanation could ever heal.